Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 48. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? We're joking about. So, oh no. Usually, before we record the episodes, every time I hit the record button for my audio on my end, it's just this horrible, like, obviously it gets cut out of the final. But it didn't happen. And I was like, this could go either way. And already, like, you're freezing up. There's delay. I'm like,
Oh, great.
I can't wait to actually record a podcast in your studio. I actually got so happy. So I'm kind of wearing all my Christmas presents.
See that? Your hat, your hoodie, your headphones.
This hoodie is amazing, and also it's fantastic. This was a Gavin present, and so was the hat. I got two hats, and they're both great.
It fit okay.
Yeah, fantastic. But I opened up the hoodie, and I was just like, "What's that smell? What is that smell?" And then I put it on, and I was like, "It's the studio.
It smells like
I've not smelt that studio in so long."
Yeah,
and I was just, it's so weird. I was just like, why is this smell making me so happy? I miss it. I miss the studio so much.
It has been said that the studio has a nice smell. That was a big thing.
Yes.
When
it permeates everything.
Yeah, because of the location and also because of sweaty musicians. I always want to keep on top of that because recording and rehearsal studios are prone and famous for smelling like wet dogs.
Man. Or weed.
It's one of the two. I hate the smell of weed. So I got, like, right from the get-go, I had, like, these, was it Ambi Pure or Febreze or something, plugins, and I've had them for years, and, like, it's become a meme. It's like...
it's become everybody that goes into a studio is like,
it smells amazing.
What a nice smell. And then if I ever leave, like if I've left a bass guitar there overnight, because I'm going back in to record the same day, and then I take it back.
Yeah, it smells
beautiful. It
beautiful.
just smells of your studio for days.
Yep.
Like it's just funny. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, kind of a good segue talking about your
talking
studio.
About studios.
We're going to talk about studio recording again, but this is kind of more of a lesson for me.
Yeah. I sort of thought that the idea came about because Julian was looking to learn some more about mixing in particular. So I was like, that'd be quite cool to like talk about it in podcast form, and then he can ask questions, and we can like answer it like over the podcast, which would be kind of cool. So, but the other side of it is, it dawned on me recently, and I kind of forget this, that not all musicians know everything about recording or anything about recording. So some people know more than others, but there's a sort of but we've talked about this before. It's like a snobbery, I know more than you kind of mentality when it comes to recording engineers, and they can be quite, you don't know what a subtractive EQ is. It's a thing, and it can be quite off-putting.
Yeah.
And it's full of jargon and technical terms and stuff. So we're going to go through some of the jargon and the technical terms that engineers use all the time and decode them into some translatable English.
Good.
That's the plan. It's when I first started, it was quite off-putting. My first introduction to sound engineering was under the wing of a fairly highly regarded live sound engineer who does some work in Glasgow. I don't know if he's still working. He might be getting near retirement, but he did a lot of the live audio for all the theatres, like the King's Theatre, the Pavilion Theatre, the Theatre Royal, all the theatres through in Edinburgh. He had a big company, an audio company, and he also sells PA equipment. He's like really, really up there. You know, I think he does like the King's Panto every year, and like he knows his stuff. He does like on-stage mics and stuff. So for a couple of years, I did music, sort of backing track music and stuff for pantomime. And I was sat next to him, like I would operate the keyboard and the sound effects and stuff, and he would do all the sound and the mics, and we would chat all the time about sound engineering because I was at college learning about it, and he would talk in this jargonistic language, and I was just constantly taking notes, constantly like what, he's talking about dynamic microphones and condenser microphones, and I'm like, what are they? I'm writing down these terms, I'm hearing them all the time. XLR, oh, it's an XLR. What's an XLR? So I'm typing these into my phone so that I can remember to look them up later. Because it wasn't always, you couldn't always go, oh, what does that mean? Because you don't want to look stupid, for one. Oh, I don't know what that means. But I mean, you should always be willing to learn. But as a result of that encounter, it forced me to go and learn. So I'm gonna lay out the process of recording, and we'll do it from a sort of practical thing, so a step-by-step thing, rather than just go each term on their own. So we'll deal with each step of the recording process individually. So we'll start off. There's three main sort of steps in recording, and that is the recording process, the mixing process, and the mastering process. And then all that grouped together is the process of taking a song and recording it and having a final product. That's the whole process. It encompasses that whole thing. So we'll start with recording because that's the first part. So that's capturing something that can be reviewed after the fact. That also means recording something like writing something down in a book, like history. Historians are recorders. They take something from the real world and document it in such a way that it can be viewed by other people. That's what recording means. It's the same with video. It's the same with historians. It's the same with photography.
Doctors even.
You name it.
They take records.
Yep.
You know.
Collecting data to be reviewed later. That's what recording is. And we're purely talking about audio, obviously. So there are sort of three categories of recording, or ways of capturing a musician's performance, or a performance. It can be a performance by a machine as well. So the most obvious one, microphones. Seems a bit simple, dimple, but that's the sort of, everyone knows what a microphone is. So that's just to put it simply, it's a device that picks up vibrations in the air, and like if you imagine like a skin on a drum, it vibrates. There's a little drum or diaphragm inside the microphone capsule, and the air vibrates the capsule.
Kind of like your ear.
Exactly like your ear, except it's man-made. So the diaphragm vibrates, and there are various different ways in which that vibration can translate into audio. So that depends on the different microphone type. But the general principle is when it vibrates, they've got it wired in such a way that it creates electromagnetic interference or pattern, or it's an electrical signal that can be passed down through a wire and then decoded back into audio to be passed through a loudspeaker. So a loudspeaker is just a microphone in reverse, essentially.
Right.
It's a diaphragm vibrating the electrical signal that was captured by the microphone and then putting it back into airwaves,
right,
into sound waves. You can actually revert. I don't know if you know this. You can take an old speaker or any speaker, and you can reverse wire it to become a microphone.
Yeah, that does make sense, because I mean that's how they used to record things, like way back in the day when it was wax. Yeah, it would just be like a big old cone, and you would play into it as loudly as possible, and then it would just. There's a really good.
And you could play it back on the same cone as well.
It's kind of interesting, actually. There's a video, Rob Scallon, YouTuber, and he recorded. It's quite funny. He recorded metal on wax cylinders, and it sounds so bad. But it's like it was a fun experiment, you know. You know, I guess if people had electric guitars back then, but they didn't have the recording technology, that's what Gent would have sounded like. You know, just all warbly and like.
Yep. So some engineers actually use that for recording drums. They'll take an old subwoofer, so maybe like a little 8 or 10-inch speaker, wire it up so that it becomes a microphone, so they can get an XLR lead on the end of it, shove it in front of the kick drum, and the kick drum, when you're hitting the kick drum, the subwoofer speaker picks up the low frequencies because it's a big cone, and you get real low subs on your kick drum.
I had no clue. I had no idea that people did that. That's insane.
Yamaha saw that people were doing this, and they manufactured a microphone called the Subkick, and it is just a subwoofer speaker, but reversed so that it's a microphone, and they sold it. I don't think they sell it anymore, but it's a really popular bass drum microphone, and it captures the super duper low end of the kick drum, and you use that in conjunction with other microphones to get that. So it's just a cool wee thing about microphones. So you get 3 different types of microphones that you need to care about. Number 1, dynamic microphones. That's your vocal mic that you use live, the sort of classic SM58. Looks like a little ball on top of a stick.
Let me see if I have one handy, because I do have one. I don't think it's handy.
It's not handy. It's a handheld mic usually.
It is a handheld mic. I was meaning more in the sense of like, so I could show the folks at home what it looks like. Oh, you can imagine it.
But you know, the point is,
you've sang karaoke.
A dynamic microphone is very similar to a passive guitar. So a dynamic microphone relies on magnets.
Right.
So you get this. When the diaphragm vibrates, it gets this magnetic interference, and then it gets translated into an electrical signal down an XLR cable to where it's going to be recorded. And the other type of microphone is a condenser microphone, and it's the same, except it's not using magnets, it's using electromagnets. And electromagnets need power, and we call that phantom power.
Right.
It's you send electricity up the audio cable, and it powers the electromagnet in the diaphragm. And as a result, you can get, because you've got more control and more power in the diaphragm, you can get higher quality sound. You can capture higher frequencies. So you tend to see studio vocal mics like the one I'm using right now and the one Julian is using right now for the podcast are both large diaphragm condenser mics. You also get small diaphragm dynamic and condenser mics. It just means that the little diaphragm that vibrates and captures the sound is smaller. That's it.
Right.
The reason you would want that is because if you're recording drums and you want to capture something very, very specific on that drum set, you might want to get a smaller diaphragm microphone, because if you've got a big old one, it'll pick up everything round about it. If you want something really laser focused, you want something maybe hypercardioid, which means its field of view. Imagine a torch.
Right.
A torch is like a wide cardioid, and a laser pen is hypercardioid, so it's super fixed on one point. That's the type of mic you want for like hi-hats, because you don't want to pick up loads of other things necessarily. So that's kind of
cool.
And the third one is ribbon mics. I don't know an awful lot about ribbon mics. I don't own one. They're really nice on instruments, things like flute and violin and cello, vocals as well. But from what I know about them, they're extremely sensitive and they break super easy. And if you accidentally feed them phantom power, they just stop working. So I've just never bothered with them.
Right. So before you carry on, one question.
Go for it.
If hypothetically, and I'm sure, to be honest, like I'm sure there's a lot of people in this situation. If you could only get one mic and you were having to rely on that mic to record most things, just to get you started, what would you recommend? What would be the one mic that you would use?
Probably a Shure SM57 or a Shure SM58.
I was more talking about like dynamic condenser.
Okay. If you're just starting out, dynamic mics are cheaper and they're robust. You can kick them about and they don't break. Condenser mics are quite finicky. They can break quite easily and they're more expensive. Ribbon mics are expensive as well. And a good all-rounder is, if you want to get a good all-round mic, a dynamic is probably a good shout. But if you're doing mostly maybe acoustic guitar and spoken or vocals, perhaps a large diaphragm condenser would be good. But if you're miking up percussion, guitar amps, also vocals, and you can only afford one mic, get a dynamic. That's what I would say.
Okay. Cool.
So
yeah, nice. No, fair enough. Yeah, I've been experimenting. Obviously, I've used this for recording acoustic instruments, and it's great. It's really, really good. Yeah. And I mean, this isn't even it's not a fancy one. It's like a really, really cheap old thing. Yeah, but it sounds, in my opinion,
is that my old mic?
It sounds pretty good. It's your old mic, yes.
Yeah, someone gave it to me along with a sort of crappy 1990s digital recorder thing. It was like a DAW mixing desk interface all in one machine, and it had a hard drive in it and everything, really old. And he gave me that and a really crappy spider clip and some XLR cables for like 50 quid. So I don't know how much that makes worth, but it'll do the job. For home recording, like you don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on microphones.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was even having a look because we got that list of like affordable gear, and there's like is it Audio-Tech? No, it's not Audio-Technica. It's something like that. But there is a condenser mic on there, which is like, it's not even that expensive. It's like 100 quid.
Yep, that's the Audio-Technica AT2020.
Yeah, that's the one.
Let me find the sheet. Level up gear list. Yeah, I put that on because it's a really good one. Yeah, it's the Audio-Technica AT2020. I think it's about £100, maybe 90.
Right.
I would recommend that. Anyway, moving on to the second way of capturing something. Electric instruments with pickups. So, as you know, guitars have pickups, and they work very similar to microphones. The difference being microphones have a diaphragm, and the diaphragm reacts to sound waves in the air. Pickups react to electromagnetic interference from strings. They're not microphones. They do not vibrate. It's the movement of metal strings in front of it that creates a wave, and then that gets translated into an electrical signal down a wire, and then the same thing happens in an amplifier that happens in a speaker. It translates it back into sound waves. And there are two ways of doing that. There's active and passive. You get guitars like a Fender Stratocaster that has magnetic pickups, and then you have some other monstrosity that has electromagnetic pickups, which is powered by a battery.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's just because I don't play the style of music that would require active pickups. I used to have an active bass, and I never used the active properties in it.
Yeah.
Because I hated the sound, and I always have. You know, even when I teach kids, I'm like, don't get an active bass.
Yeah.
You just have to spend money on getting batteries.
Yeah.
You know.
So, how do we capture that? So this electrical signal, it doesn't exist, tangibly. You need to be able to capture that somehow. So what we use, two things. We use DI boxes and amplifiers. So we all know what amplifiers are. Guitar amps and stuff, right? You plug it in, it makes a noise. So what happens in the amp is it takes the electrical signal and it amplifies, increases the amplitude of the wave, the electrical wave, and then passes that electrical signal to a loudspeaker, and that gets converted back into sound waves so that you can hear it. That's essentially what an amplifier does. A DI box, what they're used for, you take the signal from the guitar and you record the signal into a DAW, so a digital audio workstation like Cubase or Pro Tools, or you can record it to tape if you're old-fashioned. So what a DI box does, nobody knows what a DI box does. It's a mystery because the answer is easily forgettable because the answer is complicated. The answer is a DI box takes an unbalanced signal and makes it balanced. And you're like, what the what? So
I think I understand. I think I get it. So it kind of like it basically take it all and kind of compress it into like a particular no?
No.
No, okay, never mind. So I don't understand.
What it does, a DI box takes a passive, like a passive guitar, passive guitar takes, there's no battery involved with a passive guitar. You can get DI boxes with batteries as well, and without. I have 3 DI boxes, they're all passive. I've never bothered with an active DI box, again, because I don't want to change the battery, because I'm that kind of person. So it takes the unbalanced signal. Guitars have unbalanced signals. What does that mean? An unbalanced signal means that you have inside the jack cable, everyone knows what a jack cable is, the wee 1/4-inch jack thing.
Yep.
Guitar cable. Inside there are 2 wee wires, right? And the audio travels down one of them, and then you've got the return, the earth. In a balanced cable, you have 2 audio signals. And what happens is, because we know that 2 waves on top of each other, if you reverse the polarity of one, they cancel out.
Right.
And because of that, they've figured out how to make reduce the noise that can get picked up and interference from the outside. So if you're extending cables for long distances, if you do it with balanced cables, you pick up minimal interference. But if you do it with unbalanced, you get loads and loads of scratches and hisses and pops and clicks and everything, like, because it's picking up power cables and interference from radio. And I mean,
right.
You go to like some venues, and you pick up the radio with your guitar because poor grounding and earthing and stuff.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that scene in Spinal Tap where he's got his wireless receiver and it's just picking up the air traffic control chatter during his guitar solo. I love that movie so much.
Yeah,
so funny.
So that's what a DI box does. It converts an unbalanced guitar signal or instrument signal and makes it balanced.
Right. Okay.
Usually, out the back of a DI box, you get an XLR cable, which is the same type of cable that you plug into a microphone. A microphone signal is balanced. Right out the microphone, it's balanced. It's not unbalanced. And it can go into a mixing desk ready for recording. You want to record all your signals balanced. Because you get weird interference and hiss and noise. You never plug your guitar lead directly into a mixing desk to record. You always have to record into the DI box, and then the DI box links to the mixing desk because you get a cleaner, nicer sound. That's basically what it is. All electronic nonsense. And the last one to do with recording is synthetic sound. So that's electronically generated. So that's synthesizers. So it's an electrical signal that you can manipulate and get different sounds, like old-fashioned synthesizers from the 80s. Your Moog synthesizers, your all that stuff, polysynths and monosynths, and so basically,
to be fair, hardly anybody uses like the actual real things anymore. I have an excellent plugin.
They're extremely expensive.
It's by Arturia, actually. It's called Analog Lab 4. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It has like nearly every single keyboard you could think of, including like lots of like made like sorry, it's a bit of a tangent. But loads of like really cool like pre-made kind of tangents, like not tangents, pre-made like this is a tangent, but no, pre-made synths and sounds that you find in famous songs, such as like it's got the the intro of Beat It, the boo. It's got that synth already set up for you.
Okay.
The Kenny Loggins like Danger Zone like slap bass kind of sound, like the boom 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 boom. It's got that. It's got like every that's kind of their specialty, is that sort of like late 70s, like early to mid 80s like synth sounds. They all sound amazing. And on top of that, they have some really nice...
Great. That'd be great if you were doing covers.
Yeah.
You could just get the thing and that would be it.
And also the piano sounds as well are fantastic. I use them, unfortunately, because my DAW is only 32-bit and it's a 64-bit plugin. I can't use it, which sucks. But I can... I just use it for teaching at the moment. It's kind of
gigs eventually, hopefully.
Yeah.
Synthetic sounds, it's only synthetic because electronically generated sounds from synthesizers, they never existed in the real world. These sounds, they started out in the electronic domain and then were brought into the sonic world by passing into a loudspeaker. It's not like an acoustic guitar where you can actually pick up an acoustic guitar and strum it and hear the instrument with your own ears with nothing in between.
Right.
And it's not like a drum kit or someone singing or a whistle or something. This actually comes, rather than, if you record an acoustic guitar, it goes into the microphone and then it becomes an electrical signal. When you record something, it becomes electronic. Everything's electronic when you record it. and then it comes back into the domain of audio, actual physical sound waves in the air. But synthesizers were never real; they're always electronic. And this kind of ties into samples. You kind of alluded to that, like real world examples. So you can sample real world instruments and then trigger them with electricity.
And mate, not even just instruments, anything. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but my cat meowing, you can sample that and make a lovely tune out of it.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's taking something from the real world and putting it into the electronic domain and then using that as an instrument.
Crazy.
And that that's kind of, it's the sort of synthetic domain is it's a bridge between real world instruments and the final product. They're kind of stuck in the middle because you can bring this into the domain of electronic using MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. We've talked about that before in a episode a couple of episodes ago.
Yes.
Probably on the keyboard episode.
Yeah, one question, and I think it was the VST episode as well. We talked about it. One question regarding amplifiers when you are recording. So obviously you can record it with a microphone. I understand that much, right? But say your amplifier has a DI out.
Yes.
Could you record that?
Depends on what you mean. So
like for example, I was I think I actually I've got a little. It's nothing special. It's like a little 10-watt guitar amp, and it actually has a. Let me just double check. What do you have?
It's an intelligent amp that can speak English.
It just told me.
It just told you.
It has a line. It just has a line out jack, and it's just
right.
It's just a quarter-inch.
Right. So what that
jack,
is,
like
what that is you can get a line out, and you can also get a DI out from an amp.
Yes, because I have a DI out on my bass amp.
Those are different. So DI out is literally just the guitar signal. It's not going through any amp at all. It's basically they've just carried on the cable from your bass guitar and have taken it to the DI out socket in the back of your amp. There's no processing done to it at all. It's clean, straight from the guitar.
Right.
A line out, what happens is a lot of amps nowadays, because they're all modern, they call it a line out. So it saves you using a microphone. So when you record an electric guitar amp, you basically just get a microphone and you shove it in front of the speaker and turn it up. And the microphone captures the audio that the amp is producing. That's how you record a guitar amp. But some manufacturers offer this line out thing, so you can just put a jack cable in the back of the amp and you can record it that way. Maybe you can't get a mic in front of it for whatever reason. So what amplifier manufacturers do is when the guitar signal goes in, it goes through the amplifier and all the effects. So you get your EQ and your reverb and delay and stuff that's built into the amp all through your pedals, and then the output, it will sound horrible. It'll sound all raspy and that's the sound of when the guitar signal comes out of the amp. It always sounds dead, like tinny and raspy. So in order to combat that, they put in a cabinet emulator, because when you pass that scratchy sound and you put it into a loudspeaker, the loudspeaker in the guitar amp cams it down and it rolls off the top end frequencies and it sounds like a guitar. The sound of the guitars in Revolution by the Beatles, that is them plugging their guitar amps, bypassing the cabinet and going straight to the mixing desk.
Yeah, they do the guitar solo in what is it, Steely Dan and
yes,
Bodhisattva, exact same thing. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure they did the exact same thing. It's just straight in.
straight in.
Yeah.
If you guitarists out there, for a wee experiment, instead of plugging, so you've got a pedal board, you plug in your tuner, then it goes to your distortion pedal, then your phase and all that, blah blah blah. The output, you usually plug that into your amp. Don't, just for fun, plug that into your interface if you've got one, and listen to the sound of that. It'll sound like raspy garbage because it hasn't been passed through a cabinet, a speaker. So they need, on the line out option you're talking about, they have to put a cab emulator on it, and almost all of them sound like dog crap. I've got one.
Right.
I've got one through here. It's a Blackstar ID60 solid state amp, and sometimes I use the emulated output, so it emulates the sound of a cab, because I can't get a mic in front of it for whatever reason. And I usually use it for recording guide guitars when I'm recording, and then I take the DI signal that I recorded and reamp it through something better.
Right. Okay. So what you're basically saying is that don't record. Is it so? Would you recommend recording the line out rather than straight in through the DI and reamping it later?
If your amplifier is a Kemper, do it. That's how I do it. I don't use a cab ever. If your amp is a Line 6 Spider,
is a Vox, if your amplifier is a Vox 10, don't.
No, don't.
Okay. Okay, so for guitar, but what about a bass amp with a DI out?
Same deal. So the DI out of your bass amp is just, like I said, it's just a guitar. You don't even... If you are taking your amp to a gig and you're taking the line out and you're not even using the speaker, you're just using the amplifier and you're taking the DI out, you'd be as well not bothering. There's no point. Your amp's not doing anything. It's not amplifying anything. You'd be as well just plugging straight into the desk. But if your bass amp has an emulated output, i.e. it emulates the sound of a cab, then use that.
Mine does.
Yours does?
Yes, it has a pre EQ function. I think that's the same thing. I don't know.
Pre EQ just means it takes the signal before you've EQ'd it on the amp.
So it doesn't. It's just yeah. So what you're telling me is that the times that I've strolled up to a gig and I've just had my head, because I didn't have space to take I might as well have just plugged into a DI box.
Correct. Yes. You did. It was basically doing nothing. All you were doing is turning up the volume. It just gave you more control over volume, but you've got a volume knob on your guitar anyway, so it's yeah. If it was DI, but if the output of your little amp, if it wasn't a DI out and a line out, then yes, you would have been using your amp, because you could have turned the gain up and got distortion and stuff like that, but you can't do that with a DI out because it's just straight out the guitar.
I think it is just a DI out, so basically that's good to know.
Test that. It might take in the gain and if it's pre-EQ
and the EQ and stuff.
If it's post EQ, then it is using the amp.
I think it does give you the option. You can, because a lot of people have a lot of sound engineers, when I've worked with them, they're like they kind of like taking a DI out of my amp because they're like, oh, it's like the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, because there's options for like pre EQ and like I think it's, if you don't press the pre EQ button, it's just post. So every time I've worked with a sound engineer, they're like, your amp's amazing. Okay. I'm like, yes, I know.
So maybe the pre EQ means that it'll take the gain, but it won't take the EQ. So your amp does do something.
Yeah, so I can mix it on the stage to however I like it, and then they can mix it way over there to whatever sounds good through their PA. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So your EQ, if you can bugger about with your EQ and it doesn't affect what goes out front, essentially.
Because to be honest, I just use my bass speaker as a monitor for myself anyway, just to hear myself.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
So that kind of
right.
That's the kind of recording, and all of this is captured electronically from your microphones, your DIs, your amplifiers, your synthesizers. Everything is all captured, and is placed onto a mixing desk. You've seen these in films and everything, and if you've ever been to a studio, you've seen a big mixing desk, or some of them are digital now. Mine's digital. Mine's a touchscreen. So yeah, it's all onto a mixing desk, and then it gets recorded to either tape or hard drive. It's more hard drive these days with Cubase and Pro Tools and all the rest of it. Okay, so due to the first part of this being so long, and the internet has been really, really poopy today on Julian's end, and he keeps cutting out, and I keep going into robot voice.
Yeah, I think the best part for me was when you just, for a really long time, you just let out a sort of broken up. You were saying the word really, but it just sounded like a really broken up, like it just sounded like you were going re.
I was reeing.
Quite funny. You were reeing away.
Yeah. Cool. So, and it's already gone on. We've been on this call for an hour. So we are going to wrap up the first part of this and call it recording. It's going to be Recording Crash Course Part 1 recording. Or I don't know, I'll call it something. Part 2 will be mixing and mastering, and we'll do that another time because it's just, it's ridiculous. So, I'm going to have to, because we kind of started doing mixing and the internet cut out, so I'm going to have to go back and delete all that out and then edit this outro in, which is going to be a lot of fun for me.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. So, that, we'll wrap it up there with recording. The whole point in this is to try and demystify, or what's the word?
Yes.
Trying to get rid of all this jargonous.
I think demystify is the right word, because it does feel like a very mysterious kind of, like a weird niche kind of thing. It feels like a bizarre, like, club, like a boys club that you need to, I don't know, like do some kind of weird like initiation rite, and then suddenly you become a sound engineer and you know all the secrets. And I'm sitting there like, I have no idea, but I'm wanting to do it because
it's really important. It's really important to know, because
it is important.
People can take advantage of you if you don't know these things.
True.
Things like, when you're done recording, here's your finished song. I'll not spend a week mixing it. Like, if you're new to it, you don't know that's the process.
Exactly. And the other thing as well is that with this, you can take your band a step up, and you can start recording decent sounding demos that you can then send away, or even, because of the situation that we're in, and hopefully we won't be in it for too long, but like even recording full-fledged songs.
Yeah.
And maybe releasing them yourself, or recording them and then sending them somewhere else to get mixed and mastered, and then you can release them, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think this is the way we're going to have to be working for a wee while,
Yeah.
So
cool.
This way you get to release music, and the sound engineers that can't have people in their studios can still make money.
Yeah.
It's a lovely little circle.
Absolutely.
Of helping everybody out.
Cool. So we'll be back next time, hopefully with a better attempt.
A more solid internet connection, yes.
Yeah. On the mixing and mastering side. So that's taking the recording that you've just done and making it sound good. It's like editing in a movie. You can shoot the movie, but you've got all these cuts and these takes, and if you watched all the takes, and it would just make no sense at all. So it's all editing all together to make it into something remotely cohesive. So we'll deal with that next time. If you are enjoying us rambling at each other over the internet, please leave us a nice, kind 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube and like our Facebook page, and you can follow us on Instagram as well. We also have a website, www.levelupyourband.com, and you can check that out. We've got the podcast up there as well, and all the links to all the platforms should be on the website. And you can also create an account on the website for free and get access to the free downloadable section, and you can download like free PDFs for various things like affordable gear list and sort of band managerial software recommendations.
Yes.
And some music theory stuff as well that you can check out. And we need to update those. We'll get some more music theory stuff out.
Yes. Yes.
That'd be quite cool. And most importantly of all, if you like it and you have loads of pals who are musicians, tell them that this exists, and maybe we can get some more folk to listen and get some value out of it. That would be cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up there, and we'll see you next time for Mixing Part 2.
Yay.
Hope you all have a good week. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.